Hey guys, this is Nike here. This is a video I've wanted to make for a while, which is the best build for new Guild Wars 2 players. This build will utilize your level 80 booster gear as a base for us to build on, and this is a build that you can have up and running within a few hours of hitting level 80. This build is for the Revenant class using the Vindicator Elite specialization. It can do it all: damage, self-healing, self-buffing, and ranged combat. Simply put, no other starter build can compete with this beast. A couple of caveats. This build is ideally suited for solo, open world, and story. Newer players are primarily going to find themselves playing story and going through open world, getting mounts, doing map completion, etc. If you're a new player watching this, be aware this build is not particularly suited for endgame group play. Once you're to the point where you're looking to get into endgame content, you can and should begin to equip and gear and unlock a meta build. The second caveat is that this build will require about 15 to 20 gold to get going after the level 80 boost. Some people might object that a new player doesn't have this gold, but I do believe if you level 1 to 80 normally and you don't spend your gold on nonsense, you should have plenty by the time you hit 80. Additionally, if you boosted right away, you might in fact find yourself short of gold, but a few hours of selling everything that you get from events will get you there. The third and final caveat is that you do not have to use a boost and skip leveling. Especially for a new player, leveling 1 to 80 is great fun and I encourage you to do it. But that said, I strongly encourage you to get to level 79 and then use your booster for that last level. The gear you get from the booster is worth a significant amount of gold. And if you have, and to craft this gear on your own, would require dozens or even hundreds of gold. And if you have that much, you could skip straight to a meta build for the endgame and play that instead. Again, even if you level normally, use your booster at the end of leveling to get the free gear. With that out of the way, let's talk about the build. Like I said, it's tanky, it has tons of self-healing, deals great damage, and can support itself with virtually every meaningful boon in the game. If you're new to the game, simply put, this is the most powerful build you can use, and I wouldn't hesitate to call it basically PvE God mode. Alright, so for gear, our armor and trinkets are going to come from the level 80 booster, which gives you a full Celestial exotic set. And Celestial, if you aren't aware, is basically giving you every stat in equal measure. Celestial is especially strong for condition damage builds that have high sustain, make a lot of boons, and that's exactly what we are. There are, however, a few other pieces of gear in this build that don't come in your level 80 booster that you will need to acquire, and some of them are very easy to get, some of them are a little trickier than others. The single hardest thing to get in the build is going to be our runes. You want, ideally, 6 Superior Rune of the Trapper. This is annoying because the only way to get these is crafting them yourself, which means leveling up one of the armor crafting disciplines to level 400, buying the recipe off the trading post, buying the materials you need to craft the runes off the trading post, which aren't cheap, and then doing it yourselves. There are cheap ways to get to level 400 in tailoring or armor smithing, but this is kind of complicated for a new player, and maybe not the most user-friendly thing. And then once you get to level 400 in whatever discipline, to craft the runes is going to cost you around 12 gold of materials for the 6 runes. This is the single hardest part of the build to put together. Quite frankly, I wouldn't blame you for skipping it. If you do want to skip the Trapper runes, there are several solid replacements that you can buy on the trading post. The ones I would recommend most, in no particular order and in not prioritized by cost, are Superior Rune of Balthazar, Superior Rune of the Berserker, Superior Rune of the Firebrand, and Superior Rune of the Sunless. These are all fine choices, and they have various costs. I do want to emphasize that Trapper runes are quite superior to all of these. So if you have the gold and the time, I would strongly suggest getting the Trapper runes. If you don't have the gold or the time to level up the crafting, one of the alternatives I just mentioned is your best bet. Now, our weapon is going to be an exotic short bow called Stardust. Now, Stardust you can buy straight off the trading post for around 40 silver at the time of this video. That's pretty cheap. You want to replace the Sigil of Accuracy, I believe, that it comes with a superior Sigil of Frailty and a superior Sigil of Corruption. There are some other sigils that are quite good and a bit better than Corruption generally, but they have a really prohibitive cost, and the amount of gold that they would cost, I can't recommend for a starter build. These two sigils together will set you back about 10 silver, and they are very strong, so there's no reason not to use them. If you did have unlimited gold and you could buy those better sigils, I'm hesitant to tell you what they are because I know someone will probably swipe their credit card and buy gems for gold to buy the sigils. But I want to emphasize, I do not want you to use sigils that cost 10 to 15 gold for a starter build. If you're gonna do that to get gold to fund a build, you should put that gold towards getting a meta build geared for endgame instanced PvE. And then the last piece of gear to acquire for the build is our relic, which is Relic of the Rivers. This relic is only available to owners of Janthier Wilds, but it's crucially important to the build since it's our source of alacrity and our biggest source of regeneration. You can unlock this relic in World v World through the Janthier Wilds reward track, or much easier, you can complete the heart at the Harvest Den waypoint in Lowland Shore in Janthier Wilds and buy it for some research notes and some map currency. The research notes aspect of it is relatively expensive, but you can get that many notes for a gold or two, so it's not that huge of a deal. So my recommended gearing priority is to get the relic once you have your Vindicator trait line fully unlocked from hero points, and then you've bought Stardust and whatever set of runes you're comfortable with. Once you have the runes, once you have Stardust and the sigils, and once you have Vindicator fully unlocked, then bolt your way to Lowland Shores, come to the waypoint here at Harvest Den, do the heart, and get the relic. After you get the relic, you will be fully online, and you can go about doing the story or exploration, whatever else you want to do in whatever order you like. If you have any questions about the gearing specifically, ask me below. But yeah, that's it for the gearing, guys. Now for traits, we're going to take Corruption, Salvation, and Vindicator. In Corruption, we want to take Acolyte of Torment for more damage, Pact of Pain, which gives us even more damage, and at Grandmaster, we take Fiendish Tenacity. Now, Fiendish Tenacity, what this actually does is when you swap to Malek's stance, when you're in combat, you will get 7 seconds of resistance. And this resistance is good in and of itself for making you immune to blind, cripple, immobilize, all that. But what the trait does that's really good is it makes it so that every second that you have resistance, you heal for 452 health, which makes it a potent source of sustain in combination with all our other layered sources of sustain. And speaking of those, we get a lot of them from Salvation. We're going to take Eluding Nullification, which allows us to remove conditions from ourselves with a dodge roll. Resilient Spirit, which means every 3 seconds we get a bunch of barrier that we generate per boon that we have on us, and we have a lot of boons in this build. And then in Grandmaster, we take Unyielding Devotion, which gives us a 15% damage reduction every time we heal someone. Since our Adept minor trait allows us to heal ourselves every time we dodge, we essentially get to keep Unyielding Devotion up very often, very high uptime of this. And if you happen to be in the open world and there's another player nearby you and you heal them with your dodge, then Unyielding Devotion will be very easy to keep up at all times. And this is a very significant damage reduction, and you can't go wrong with that. In Vindicator, we are going to take Amnesty of Xing-Jie, which gives us boons when we use our Vindicator skills, but also when we use our Energy Meld, it will give us a significant amount of might and regeneration. Next, we are going to take Song of Arboreum, which makes our Energy Meld grant us 12.5 seconds of Vigor, which is quite good because it allows us to dodge a lot more often, and dodging, as you've seen, gives us a bunch of our healing and our sustain. Plus, dodging is an evade frame. And then at Grandmaster, we take Imperial Impact, which makes our dodge do some damage, which is good. So you can see that dodging now sustains us and does damage, but it means every time we dodge, we get 5 stacks of might and we get 7 seconds of protection. And since we dodge quite a bit, we essentially will have 25 might and we will have 100% uptime of protection at all times from this. Protection is one of the most powerful boons in the game. 33% incoming damage modifier negative, incredibly good. And obviously having 25 stacks of might is going to be a huge asset to our damage. So that is the traits. So for the core trait lines, you will unlock these by the time you hit level 80. You'll have enough hero points to unlock all the core stuff. Now to unlock Vindicator, what you have to do, the fastest way to do that is to join a hero point train. Now you can find these in the LFG all the time, usually in the section for Verdant Brink, I think is where they all start. If you can't find one and you do have to unlock the solo, I would say that the easiest way to do it is in End of Dragons, because the hero points in Heart of Thorns can be sometimes hard to get because they're kind of gated. They're either gated behind masteries or gated behind, gliding or mounts that a new player may not have. Whereas in End of Dragons, the hero points are all very easy to find and to accomplish solo. And then POF somewhere in the middle. If you aren't committed to doing exploration in a strict order of content, it can be faster, much faster, to unlock your elite spec in End of Dragons maps and then resume playing chronologically or however you like. Or, as I said, if you can, join a hero point train. So how does the build actually play? I will talk about that in just a sec. So this build has a ton of utility baked into it, and there's no way to really describe what you want to use and when in every situation, but I can give you some guidelines though. You generally want to dodge every time you can. Always be dodging if you have one available. Scavenger Burst is our source of quickness, which is one of the Vindicator utility skills, and you need to use it essentially on cooldown while in Alliance stance. You should have enough quickness by the time you're done with Alliance stance to maintain perma-quickness uptime while you swap to Malix. That said, it's very important to swap legends. You get significant benefits on legend swap and recharge your energy. So you want to do it as often as you can, as close to cooldown as possible. In Malix, you want to make sure that your elite skill, Embrace the Darkness, is up constantly. If you run out of energy, it is probably time to swap back to Alliance stance anyway. And then in Alliance stance, remember to spam Scavenger Burst, and you can use your elite skill for more damage, and you can use Reaver's Rage to give you on-demand stability. Now, as far as our weapon goes, our short bow, remember that skill 5 on your short bow is your main crowd control ability, so don't spam it for damage. It's a lot of energy to use, and it doesn't actually do a lot of damage, so you definitely want to save it just for doing those crowd controls. Now, to maximize your damage, you always want to try to use skill 4 before you use skill 3, since the arrows from skill 3 passing through the fire field of skill 4 will inflict a few more stacks of burning. Now, skill 2 is your damage filler skill when 3 or 4 are on cooldown, and it's slightly better than an auto attack. One thing to note is that your weapon is ranged, and that you can use the range to your advantage in particularly tough situations. Again, you can experiment, and through trial and error and playing the build, you'll start to see different combos that you have and different abilities that you can mix in, and you can really learn to kind of deal with any situation with this build. So yeah, now that you guys know how to play it, get out there. So that's it, guys. The best starter build in Guild Wars 2. Again, I know that not everybody is a Revenant fan, and not everybody wants to play a heavy armor class. Just play what you want to play. There's good starter builds for every class. And so I'm definitely not saying you must play this. But if you are a Revenant fan, or you're just a power gamer type who only wants to play the most powerful build, this is it. And I hope you like it. If you do dig the build, please give it a try. Let me know how you like it in the comments below. Any questions, again, you have, leave them below. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.